Hey folks, Corey from RocketPD here. I wanted to take a moment because we've received a lot of calls this year from folks asking about professional learning, particularly options around professional learning for teachers and staff who are busy and might not have the time to come in to their school or district for a couple of days to do training. People asking about options for voice and choice, the ability to give their teachers and staff a little bit more control over the professional development that they're engaging with or that they're learning with. We created our Launchpad in response to some of those questions. As you can see on your screen, we're calling it Career Empowerment in Your Pocket. And I'll just show you a little bit of what that might look like here as part of this presentation. If you see anything that interests you or you want to dive a little bit deeper, I'll include my contact information at the end of this presentation so that you can reach out to me and we can talk further. Before I kind of show you the product itself, though, I did just want to take a step back, as I often do, and talk about some things that we know to be true. We know, for example, that students need great teachers and staff, especially as they're trying to make up lost academic ground right now. I think we hear a lot about teachers leaving or people not wanting to be teachers anymore. The reality is that the headlines aren't always the whole picture. I think the majority of your teachers and staff, if you were to survey them, you'd find that they're passionate about their work and about their students. When they feel inspired and they feel engaged in their craft, they have the power to change lives. That's not hyperbole. Teachers really represent the shortest distance between a student and their potential that we have. Again, given the right support, teachers and staff are incredibly effective at what they do. Those are just facts. The research bears this out. Now, at the risk of oversharing, I'm going to give you a story from my own life, my own experience. When I was coming up in the public school system, this was in the mid to late 80s. This was in Howard County, Maryland. I was someone with cerebral palsy. My disability presented its fair share of challenges, both physical and social emotional. But I had something at that time, a supportive family, I always tell people for sure, but also teachers and staff, sort of these committed, creative professionals who just kind of were happy to use what they knew about learning to help me. And I always tell people this way, to help me turn my differences into strengths. When I graduated school, I became a journalist and I started writing about education. Schools were my beat, and I traveled all around the country talking to educators, visiting schools. As I did that, I began to notice a trend. That same innovation and creativity that I had benefited from as a student seemed to have, kind of faded away, to have been replaced by things like compliance, cynicism, fear even. Teachers and staff just didn't seem to feel like they had the same authority, the same empowerment and agency to help students the way that I had been helped. And that's one of the reasons that we created RocketPD. We wanted to come up with a community, a way to really bring some of that agency and empowerment back to the classroom and lift our teachers and staff up so that they can lift our students up. So I did just want to share that. And now, if you don't mind, I just want to ask you to put on your thinking hat for a second. I'm going to throw a couple of scenarios at you, and I just want you to think about them in the context of your work. The first one, we call it the gymnasium. Imagine you were in charge now of planning a PD day at your school or your district. Let's say you'd identified a topic that aligned with your goals. You'd identified a speaker that you were pretty excited about. Maybe you paid that person a boatload of money and you flew them in for the day. And man, that room was packed, right? But then that person gets up to speak and you look around and you see that people are on their phones. They're talking amongst themselves. They're hardly paying attention to that speaker. So you kind of shake your head and you send out a survey kind of after the fact, like you do. And it turns out half the team didn't know why they were there in the first place. Maybe they didn't see a connection or relevance to their own work. Maybe they didn't see a benefit because they weren't bought into the speaker ahead of time. So you end up spending a bunch of time and, in some cases, tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars. And for what? Nothing really. I mean, compliance. I'm going to give you another one here, right? And we'll go quickly, but we call this one the book study, right? And how many times at the beginning of the year have you told your team, hey guys, well, we're going to read this book, and maybe it's a great book. Maybe it's by a really respected author. Maybe it's on a topic that's, really important in schools. Even still, not everybody has time to read the book. And even when they do, it's hard to bring everybody back together to share their thoughts and to do something constructive with those notes and that information. Now, what if instead your team had access to a short video course that they could use? Maybe that video course was led by the actual author of the book, created by the author of the book, that they could watch on their own time, do on their phone or from wherever they are. What if the course included, some practical lessons and a downloadable workbook with some job-embedded concepts that they could use to apply and test their ideas in their departments or with students in their classrooms? Would this be maybe a more effective way to do a book study? Potentially. So I'm going to show you one more here, and this is the last one. Now, think about this from the perspective or the lens of the individual teacher or staff member. We mentioned this before, but this isn't just a job for them. It's their career. And I think, we find that they want to grow and they want to learn and they want to build skills. But that doesn't mean that they all have the same interests or desires, passions. What if they could explore different courses aligned to their goals, their professional passions? And what if they could receive certificates and get credit for that hard work? Suddenly, this isn't just more time that they have to take out of their schedule or their day or their family to meet some seat time requirement for school or for their job, but this is time to them that's well spent. So those are just a couple of scenarios I wanted you to think about as we go through this conversation. Before I show you kind of what our solution looks like, LaunchPad, I think it's important for us to talk about what it's not going to be. I think we can all agree that there is no single professional learning solution out there. And that's because career growth, it's not a product. It's a process. And anyone that tells you that they have a panacea for professional learning in your school or district probably isn't telling the truth. I'm going to put 3 boxes up on the screen here to kind of illustrate sort of our process and the way we think about this. Now, if you look in the top right, you'll see a box that says achieve. And I think that when we're talking about professional learning, it often starts with this presumption. We want our teams to achieve something, a goal, a strategic priority, whatever, so that we bring that expert in for a day or 3 days. We ask that person to talk about a topic. And the presumption is that our team will achieve something as a result of that conversation. But there's a reason that doesn't work. And that reason is articulated on this slide. We can't start with achievement when we haven't given our teachers and staff time to immerse themselves in a topic, and even below that, just the headspace to think about a concept or an idea and how it might apply to them and to their position. Because we haven't spent the time down here with empowerment, we haven't given our staff time to think for themselves, to take ownership of a problem. We have solutions for this, all of this, right? But I want to focus on empowerment because I think that that's really the starting place for this whole thing, for all of this work. And so that's what LaunchPad really is intended to do, and that's what I'm going to show you. So think back for a second to that first gymnasium story. What if when people came into that gymnasium, they already knew who, and I'm just put a couple of pictures up here, Dr. Steve Constantino in the top left, or Kim Marshall, who does the Marshall Memo, or Dr. Catlin Tucker, expert in blended learning, or Dr. Lavelle Brown, FEA Jones Humanitarian Award winner. What if they already knew these folks? What if they'd had a chance to listen to them speak or to test some of their concepts ahead of time in their classrooms or with parents? What if they were looking forward to that event before they got there? When people are excited, their minds are open. Suddenly when you do that, the mood around professional learning in your school or district changes for the better. So what does this look like? Well, in the case of LaunchPad, which we're going to see in just a second, it's a collection of expert-led courses. Again, you probably recognize some of these names, Beth Estelle, Michael Hinojosa, the former superintendent in Dallas ISD, Veronica Sofer, Kim Marshall, who we mentioned, Steve Constantino. There are others. AJ Giuliani is a part of this. You can see as we get into it, the full roster of folks. But, each one of these courses is done the same way. It has 5 modules that people can self-pace through. It has a downloadable course workbook for each topic that people can download and use to apply concepts. It has a certificate of completion. So as people go through the course, they can get credit for that hard work. I did also want to mention we have a new mobile app, which is great because it means people can take their learning with them, whether they are learning in school or they're learning from home or somewhere else. That app is available now on Apple iOS and Android, so keep an eye out for that. All of this stuff is designed to spark interest in those just-in-time topics, the ones your staff and your people actually, truly care about. We intentionally kept the family small here because we wanted to find the best people on those just-in-time topics so that you could focus your efforts on those things that were going to make a real strategic difference in your work in your school and in your community. So right now, as you look at my screen, you're seeing the inside of the RocketPD LaunchPad. It should look familiar to you. It's set up sort of like Netflix, right? You can see the different tiles or courses that are available to you. You'll see our newest course on AI here with AJ Giuliani, Wall Street Journal bestselling author AJ Giuliani. You can see Dr. Catlin Tucker, who does some things on UDL and blended learning, whose work you're probably familiar with, Michael Hinojosa, Kim Marshall, several others. You could click on any one of these tiles to go into your course. I'm going to click on AJ's as an example. As you get in, again, you'll see some familiar things. You'll see a player on your right-hand side. You can click that play button to start the course. On your left-hand side, you'll see a navigation bar, and you have the ability to go in to listen to an introduction from the thought leader, in this case, AJ Giuliani. You can also click how to use this course, so you'll get some instruction about what to do next. Of course, the downloadable workbook that I mentioned is available here. You can look at that. You can easily download that up here so that you can print that out and use it or write on it. You can see some of the activities here, and you'll be directed by the thought leader about how to use these activities as you step through the course. So don't worry about that right now. You can also see, of course, the different lessons. Each one of our courses has 3 key lessons with some practical outcomes. Here are the lessons here on the left-hand side. I'm just going to play a bit.
We're living in a moment right now that historians like to call a hinge of history. It's when an advancement comes along that changes the world. And whether we want to admit it or not, artificial intelligence is here to stay.
So there you can see the lesson. You can hear some of that production value and that quality. And of course, in addition to the 3 key lessons, there's a so what, what's next section where the thought leader will come on and explain kind of where this work goes from here and what you should do or think about. AJ, in his case, offers up a 3-part protocol that you can use to better integrate AI into your schools and classrooms. And of course, the certificate of completion that I mentioned. So I'm going to go back to our dashboard, and you can see all my courses are available here. Easy to navigate. You can toggle between courses, toggle between lessons. You can see how much of the lesson that you have completed. And when you do complete those lessons entirely, you'll be automatically sent a certificate of completion that you can share with your administrators or your team to demonstrate the commitment that you've made to the topic or the course. So that is the RocketPD LaunchPad kind of in a nutshell. I want us to go on for a second and talk about how school districts are using this. It's often the question that we get after we share a look into LaunchPad. We get the question of who's using this and what are they doing. So I wanted to share a couple of those examples with you, if that's okay. The first one is from Stoughton Public Schools in Massachusetts. This is a small to mid-sized district in Massachusetts. These guys are interesting because they're organizing around a single strategic initiative. And what I mean by that is they came to us and they said, hey, we've got a couple of big ticket items that we want to focus our people on this year, one of which was family engagement. And so they said, can you give 700, 800 of our staff members access to Steve Constantino's LaunchPad course on family engagement to start? So we loaded everybody up with one course. The entire team went through that course, got together, did some things together, completed the workbooks over time, and finished that course. When they were done, they said, okay, this is great. We have another strategic initiative, this one around school communications. So we started to load them up with Veronica Sofer's course around that. So just an example of how we can customize this for different districts based on what you want. You can either get access to all of the courses at once, or we can create an opportunity where you can go in and focus your team around a very particular area of focus. So another one that I think you'll be interested in is a small private school system in rural Canada called Yellowknife. This was fascinating because, Yellowknife is up there. They're very remote. And as a result, they could not afford to send their people to a big conference or to bring in high-priced consultants. I think, it's difficult to even get to this district. So the asynchronous professional development was really appealing to them. They were able to, as a result of LaunchPad, to bring all of their courses into the platform at once and to give their teachers and staff access to some really, well-known people that they wouldn't otherwise be able to have contact or engagement with. People like Kim Marshall, people like Dr. Catlin Tucker and Dr. Steve Constantino or AJ Giuliani. The names are well known to you, and I think that our friends in Yellowknife were very happy to be able to provide that level of access to their staff in a remote location. Now, they not only had their team members engage with these courses, they had them try different ones, giving them really some voice and choice. People got to pick the different things they wanted to do. Unlike the example I showed you before with Stoughton, it really was about giving people some options and some different ways to engage. And then based on what they like, the cool thing is they're able now to say, okay, we want to dive a little bit deeper with, say, blended learning. We say, great, we've got a live virtual event that you can bring your team to in the fall where you can learn live alongside Dr. Catlin Tucker and a group of other individuals. So if you think back to, those 3 boxes I showed you, not only are we empowering people through LaunchPad, we're now giving you on-ramps to other activity so that you can immerse yourselves in these concepts, go deeper, and really begin to move the needle on a topic. So we're not going to talk as much about that in this video. I did just want to kind of illustrate how that works in our example with Yellowknife. Now, a third one I love. This is a collaborative, the Southwest Regional Education Collaborative. It's a collaborative of 8 districts here in New Mexico. As opposed to what Stoughton did, where they picked one topic, they are asking their teams to pick topics of interest within the platform, and then they're running whole groups together. So let's say 10 people pick family engagement, maybe another 20 people pick blended learning, maybe another 10 people pick school culture. They're giving groups the opportunity to run through these courses together, to collaborate, to have some engagement, and then they're picking a certain date, and they're all coming back together to do those workbooks and to do those activities as a team. So these are, of course, just a few examples of different ways that districts and others are using the LaunchPad product depending on what their professional learning needs are. It really was created as something that could be malleable and that would have different use cases for people, because we know professional learning is not a straight line. It is a process, and it's different for every school and district. We're simply trying to find different ways to help meet those needs, and we think that LaunchPad is a great complement to some of the stuff that we're already doing. Now, another cool thing really quickly is, as an administrator, or when you buy more than X number of licenses, you'll also get access to your own user dashboard and a monthly or quarterly usage report. You can see what topics are resonating. You can see how many people have completed courses, and you can use that information to think strategically about where you want to go deeper, kind of plotting your own course. If 20 staff members completed Steve Costantino's course on family engagement, maybe you want to consider sending those people to one of his virtual events in the fall. Or bringing Steve into your district. If the big interest was around Dr. Hinojosa's idea on leadership, maybe you realize you have a lot of aspiring leaders in your district and you want to give them a pathway to grow their career, to learn how to be a leader of people within an organization. You could do that, and LaunchPad, the dashboard, would tell you where those areas of interest lie. So how do you get started? Well, one thing we're not going to recommend is rolling this thing out across your entire district. I know a lot of people would come in, their eyes would get really big. They would say, you have this many students, this many teachers. Let's do a big, huge implementation and get everybody in. I don't think that works well with any technology solution. I think what you want to do, particularly with something as new as asynchronous learning, is find a core group within the district that you can test this with. There's a lot of pressure in schools right now. Budgets are tight. No one wants to stick their neck out for a new solution or a new company that they don't know a whole lot about. And we get that, right? This approach represents a small bet. Find a leadership team, find a couple of teams in different buildings within your district, get them excited about this idea, and then start to develop your own use cases. Start small. Do this as a pilot. And then what's going to happen when you do that, and we've seen it happen, is that you're going to use that time to build excitement and word of mouth. And then you can scale from there. And the way we've set this up, it's really easy to do it that way. So, oftentimes at this point, people ask, okay, so what does this cost? And, this is a recorded version. It's going to be a little bit different depending on your circumstance. So rather than get into specifics, I'll simply say that LaunchPad was developed as a way to bring professional learning into school districts in a way that was affordable and accessible. We have packages that are available for small school buildings as well as large districts and everywhere in between. If you're interested in learning more about how this might fit within what you're already doing, I would suggest that you reach out to us. I've included my information here. I'm Corey Murray. I'm one of the co-founders of the company. I've also included Jesse Lieb, who handles a lot of our district partnerships. Feel free to reach out to either one of us. We're happy to talk to you, to show you some more of those use cases and how this could be applied in your district. If you have any questions, please just let us know. I just want to thank you again for taking a few minutes to let me show you LaunchPad. Again, it's something that we're very proud of. We think it addresses a need in schools and in school communities, and we are always happy to talk more. If you want to learn more on your own, I'll drop a link to LaunchPad in the comments below this video so you can see it there.